Hello, I'm Carrie and welcome to episode 8. I am a knitter and knitwear designer based out of Columbus, Ohio, and this is my knitting studio, my little spot where I get to work on all of my projects when I'm not at work, chasing after my daughter, or trying to keep the weeds from overtaking my garden. Yes, it is November, but I took a gamble on my garden this year and did not pull anything out. We've only had some light frosts so far. So I still have tomatoes coming in and I still have a lot of weeding that I need to take care of. But we're here to chat about knitting. So today I'll be sharing 2 finished objects, 1 work in progress update, and a little bit of a yarn acquisition that I purchased within the last couple of weeks. So sharing all about those and plans for the yarns that I acquired. So I wanted to start off by talking about what I'm wearing. So you may recognize this from last time. This is my Parsed Tank and it's actually finished this time. Last time I had finished the knitting, but it was not blocked. I hadn't woven in the ends, but it wasn't ready to wear finished, and now it is. So it has been unseasonably warm the last couple weeks, and that means I've actually gotten to wear this top several times since the last time I recorded, which is great, but also not great because it's not supposed to be hot right now. It is not supposed to be tank top weather in November. But it currently is, and it is currently warm enough upstairs in my house where I have my hair back because it's hot up here. I am excited to have this completed. I'll be able to add in some footage of me wearing it after blocking. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I think the fit is beautiful. I love that I have the 2 neckline options. I can either wear it as is here with the V-neck in the front or flip it around and have a square neck option with a little bit more coverage. Both are really beautiful. So excited to have this completed and in my wardrobe, and I'm sure I'm gonna get a ton of wear out of it next spring, since hopefully it's gonna be, cooling down and turning into real sweater weather here shortly. So I'm still very stalled out on the pattern for this one since I had already decided a long time ago that I was going to push the release until the spring. I started focusing on other things, so I haven't made any progress since last time. I'm not sure when I'm actually gonna pick things back up. The pattern is in relatively good shape. I just haven't done things like tutorials and other things like that. So I'm not really, beating myself up about the fact that it is not done and probably is not gonna get picked back up for a reasonable number of weeks and or months. So I'm just going to focus on the things that I'm excited to work on and excited to write patterns for right now. So that's sweaters and little wintry accessories and things like that. And speaking of sweaters, I will go ahead and share my first finished object. So this is my first finished object. This is Plinth Sweater, and you may be kind of surprised that this is a finished object considering that last time, which was only a couple of weeks ago, this was just maybe this much of a sleeve. So I knit this sweater at lightning fast speed. I don't think I've ever knit a sweater this quickly before. Maybe I have when I actually had time in college or something like that. But this is definitely the fastest sweater that I've knit in any kind of recent memory. So it's helped by the fact that it is all stockinette. Also, it's knit in pieces, which you might think is a bit of a detractor because you have to seam it together at the end. But you get so much motivation by working on each piece and being wow, the sleeve is done. Wow, the other sleeve is done. It's wow, the back's done. Wow, the front's done. And it takes even less time than the back because you get to shape the neckline and that sort of thing. So yeah, I knit this in, I think the knitting took approximately 2.5 weeks and then a few more days to steam the pieces, seam everything together, and then do a final wet block. So it's a sweater and I love it, and I will be sure to share some photos and footage of this sweater. So again, this is Plinth Sweater. It is a new design. I actually just released the pattern today as I'm recording this, so it'll be longer ago than that when you're watching this. But I am so glad to have this finally like out in the world, completed, not just this sweater, but the pattern as well. I knit the first version of this last year. So this pattern has been in the making for over a year. When I started revisiting it this year, I decided I should add body fit options, and that's one of the things that I ended up doing for this. I knit a different body fit option for this one than I did my original sample. So this features an A-line fit. You can kind of see that here where the chest is a little bit more narrow than the hip here. It just creates a really nice easy fit over the hips. It's great for like layering over a dress. One of the things that I was struggling with my original one, which is like great to wear with pants, like a perfect pants companion. But if I wanted to layer it over dress, which I often do in the wintertime to kind of like extend the season of my sleeveless summery dresses, I'll just like throw a sweater over them. The straight body didn't always play nice with the silhouette of the dress, or like the silhouette effect that I generally wanted to have while wearing the sweater with the dress. Often when I'm wearing a sweater with a dress, I'll do a cropped sweater, so you get a nice little balance of essentially having that waistline still in there and then the skirt of the dress flaring out, but with like a straight, essentially pants length garment. It just wasn't quite layering the way that I wanted to over dresses. But this one with the A-line shape, you kind of have that already starting to float out in the same way that a dress skirt floats out, or I guess a skirt if you wanted to wear it with a skirt. So I'm finding the A-line fit is going to be such a versatile option in my wardrobe. I'm so excited to wear this like all the rest of fall and winter. It's going to be a super cozy addition to my wardrobe, and yeah, I'm probably going to be wearing it at least once a week because it is like, I'm that excited about it. A couple of details about this sweater. It is knit in pieces from the bottom up with a 7 sleeve, and I know that that's kind of like a scary construction for some people, but it's actually one of my favorite constructions because, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, like you get through each piece so quickly, which is so nice to not just get through the piece quickly, but you're only working on one piece at a time, which means there's really like, there's less to focus on, honestly. You're just like knitting a sleeve or knitting a body. If there's any kind of shaping going on, you're really only ever doing one thing. It makes for really great comfort knitting, or even kind of speed knitting, but like mindless speed knitting is what I was doing the last couple of weeks, where you don't have to think a ton and you just make such great progress, and there are very few opportunities to get tripped up. Now there's always the possibility of like, is the fit going to be the fit that you want it to be? And you can't really know that before you actually seam the garment together. So like, I get that. But something that can be really helpful is if you do want to knit a seamed garment, is to find a sweater that has a similar vibe to the garment that you're going to be knitting, and compare the measurements of that garment to the measurements of the like schematic that's provided in the pattern. So if you know that you have a top that you absolutely love, like you love the body length of it, you love the circumferences around your chest and your hips and the bicep and that sort of thing, you can use that as a reference point to make sure that what you're going to be knitting is actually going to be something that you actually like to wear. And when it comes to like body length and stuff like that, measure from the shoulder to the hem and compare that to a shoulder to hem measurement. Sometimes you may have to add up a couple of measurements in the knitting pattern, like the body length from, you know, the underarm, the armhole length, and the shoulder slope. You may have to add those 3 together if the pattern doesn't add like a total body length together for you. But that can give you a really good gauge as to like, is this actually going to be a good length on me? Without having the ability to try it on, you're kind of going to be like, okay, I know that this is a range of body lengths that I like, and you know, assuming that you're knitting to the gauge that you're expecting, And I guess that would be another good point, is to like pay attention to your row gauge, because that can change your length. Keep a few adjustments in mind if your gauge is a little bit off. And then I think the other thing that people are scared about is like the actual seaming process. And for me, it's really about the prep work. Doing good prep work before you seam makes a world of difference in your seaming experience. So at a minimum, like steam block your pieces before you seam them together. If you have the time to do it, do a full wet block of all of your pieces. That will make everything nice and smooth and flat and much easier to seam. And if you're doing a set-in sleeve like this one is here, just seam the shoulders first and then set in the sleeve. Don't try to screw around with setting the sleeve in the round after you've already like seamed the underarm of your sleeve and seamed the side seam of your body. It can be a little bit difficult to kind of see how everything lays out together as you're seaming and as you're like trying to fit the cap into the armhole. So doing the shoulder seam first and then doing your sleeve caps and then doing your underarm is going to make a huge difference in the ease of seaming. And also, as you're seaming in that sleeve cap, start by anchoring at the center, the top center along the shoulder seam, then anchor at each of the underarm points. And usually in a set-in sleeve pattern, the amount of bind off for the underarm matches between the body and the sleeve. So you can kind of line up those straight sections together. You can line up the first bit of the armhole shaping on both the body and on the sleeve cap, and then kind of just, you know, start in the middle and then do the middle again. And by do the middle again, I'm being super descriptive here, but like using locking stitch markers, securing your pieces together, you'll be able to kind of distribute super evenly throughout your armhole. So one thing that I made sure to do when drafting this pattern was to make sure that the sleeve caps and armholes would fit together really nicely. So in a woven pattern, if you've ever sewn something with a woven sleeve cap, you'll know that the sleeve cap is a lot longer than the armhole, and you kind of have to like kind of gather at the top of the cap to ease in that cap into the armhole. And that's because you need that extra room, that ease essentially, to be able to move your arm, especially up and down, in a woven fabric. However, in knitted fabrics, you don't need nearly as much ease. And coming from my background in corporate fashion pattern making, for like a knit t-shirt, sometimes the sleeve cap is actually shorter than the armhole because it kind of gets stretched as you sew it in like a factory production setting. For a sweater pattern, I try to stick as closely as possible to an exact match between the lengths of the sleeve cap and the armhole, because it just makes seaming so much easier. It makes for a really clean fit around the armhole area and just a generally more pleasant experience. All right, I feel like I've been rambling on quite a bit about this sweater, but it was a lovely sweater to knit. It was super fast. Mostly stockinette. It's worsted weight. I don't think I shared the yarn that I used for this. I used Brooklyn Tweed Shelter in the color Wool Socks. It's gorgeous. Highly recommend. I was able to get the same gauge as I did with my other first version. In that first version, I used an Aran weight yarn. So what's really nice about Shelter and being woolen spun is, you know, the spaces kind of get nicely filled in after blocking. I'm like so pleased with the post-blocked fabric. It's just so delightfully cozy, super woolly. As I mentioned, the pattern is now live, so if you'd like to make your own, you can purchase the pattern on Ravelry or Payhip. All of the details are down below, along with a little discount for those of you who are watching during release week, so be sure to check that out. Next up, I have another bonus finished object that you guys haven't seen before. These tiny mittens here. Whoop, I just dropped one. So I made these tiny little toddler mittens for my child. I made them to match the hat that I had shared last time. I actually have it here now. I had sent it with her to daycare last time, but lately it's been warm, so she hasn't needed it. So I have it home with me today. Here's that hat. So this is the Pearl Soho Classic Rib Beanie that I shared last time, and I held the yarn double in this and just held the yarn single for the mittens. For the pattern, I based this off of my Quotidian mitts pattern. So that pattern does not include a toddler size, but what I did, I used the smallest size stitch count for the worsted weight option that's included in that pattern. And after I got through the ribbing, I added in 4 more stitches. So I, you know, basically wanted it to be as snug, more snug around her wrist, but then have enough room for her little wiggly hands. So added in 4 stitches, just like 2 on the front and then 2 on the back, just kind of evenly distributed in where the stockinette portion is. Other adjustments that I made, I did regular 1x1 ribbing instead of the 1x1 half twisted rib that's in the pattern. I worked the thumb increases essentially as written for that smallest size worsted weight version. And then on the sides of the mitt, there's like just one, maybe you can see it. I'm struggling with the lighting. It's sunset here. So there's 1 column of rib on the side here. So it's like 3 stitches purl, knit, purl. In Quotidian mitts, it is like 3 rib columns on the side. So I just did 1 on each side, and the rest in the middle was stockinette. I essentially followed the instructions that are included for the mitten top. Losing my words here. I followed the instructions for the mitten top, since that is a modification option that's included in the pattern. Same thing for the thumb. I just kind of guesstimated how long to work before starting that mitten top section. I think I did like, I don't know, maybe 2 inches or so. Maybe not quite 2 inches. I don't know. I'll measure it and put it in the show notes of even knitting before starting those decreases. And then for the thumb, same kind of thing. I did the initial shaping that the thumb calls for to kind of like have a more snug fitting thumb, and then just kind of worked even for a few rounds. Like, these are so tiny. I also figured that, you know, like if I needed to rip a thumb back a little bit and add a bit of extra length, not a big deal. So I just kind of worked till I felt it looked thumb length, toddler thumb length, and then did a like quick little decrease and, you know, finished off the little thumb. These were so fast to make. I am definitely going to make more of these. These are a great way to use leftover yarn. I don't even know how many grams this is, but like not that many. So I'm absolutely going to make more of these because I guarantee that these are probably going to be lost within like, I don't know, a month or 2. And then also, I think it will be good to have like a couple of sets just live at daycare and then a couple of sets to live at home, so that in case she, you know, takes the mittens somewhere and hides them, as toddlers tend to do, we'll have backups. So definitely need to make some little toddler mitten backups. I'll also need to make some backups for toddler hats. All right, I have just turned on my overhead lights because I'm very quickly losing light outside. I did not realize how quickly the sun sets these days. I should not be surprised. The time change was last week. This is what happens now. It gets dark at like 5 o'clock, but somehow I thought I would have more time. Anyway, a few more things to share with you. For my singular work in progress, I have an update on my Wheatley socks. I have probably about half of the cuff completed on this. And I know in the last episode I was saying that, oh, maybe I'll have this sock done. But clearly all of my knitting time was spent on my Plinth sweater over here. So I did not cast this on until earlier this week after I had finished seaming this sweater, and that was like fully off the needles, fully done, all of the things. And then this finally got cast on. So it did not happen for October/Socktober. It's just gonna happen for November, and they'll be great to wear when I get them done. This has been my primary project now that I have that sweater off the needles, so this is just a couple of days of knitting. I've been doing a lot of prep work for the pattern release for this, so I haven't been doing a lot of knitting. Like, I maybe started this on Tuesday morning for election line knitting. So don't get me started on that, but it's going now. It's going relatively quickly for, you know, fingering weight socks. I feel like the issue that I was having with this yarn when I first started knitting the other one, and that was, I felt like the yarn was splittier than I was typically used to for a sock yarn. I feel like I'm no longer running into the same problem, and I don't know if that's just because my hands have finally gotten used to how this yarn works, I guess, or if it's because I ended up winding the yarn. So the yarn comes in like little balls from Knit Picks. So this is worked in Knit Picks Stroll, and it just like, it's a little, you know, like machine wound ball with the ball band around it, kind of like this, a ball like this. And I ended up just winding it into a cake on my ball winder because I wanted it to be a little bit more compact. Balls are just kind of like a little poofy, so I just want it to be a little bit, you know, a little smaller. So maybe there's like additional twist added in as I wound it. Maybe I was having an issue with like the plies slightly coming unplied, and now that I've wound it, I'm not having the same issue. I honestly couldn't tell you. I guess maybe I'll get some more Stroll and do a little experiment of knitting straight from the ball and knitting from a cake and see, like, do I have a different experience knitting one way versus the other. All of that to say, have been actually really enjoying knitting this. The stitch pattern is super meditative. It's like, you know, just knit a couple, purl a couple, do that all the way around. You get a really satisfying texture out of it. Yeah, really nice. Excited to wear these when I finally get them done. Lastly, I wanted to share a little bit of yarn that I picked up in the last couple of weeks, and wanted to preface this by saying I lately have not been buying yarn super frequently. May seem a little bit odd as a knitwear designer, like not really buying yarn, but I have been kind of trying to like understand better what I already have and work through the things that I have so that I can, you know, appreciate those, and then get to a point where I can actually like enjoy buying and using yarn in a more timely manner. Just because right now I have things that are like 10 plus years old, they're beautiful, would love to work with them. But then when I like buy something new, I get into like an ooh shiny thing, and I want to use the new yarn, but I start to feel guilty about the existing yarn that I already have. Anyway, so this is definitely the first major yarn purchase that I've made this year. I did buy a little bit of yarn for a tank top over the summer from my local yarn shop, Yarn and Dash, for their 10th birthday. So I really wanted to support them for their shop anniversary. But I honestly can't remember the last time that I had purchased yarn before that, at least this year. I think I had maybe purchased some either at the very end of last year or at the beginning of this year. It's not like in my regular habits though to like go on a yarn buying binge. So segments like this will be relatively fewer and farther between. But since I did buy yarn, I did want to share all of the things that I got because they're beautiful. So first up, and this was kind of like the reason why I purchased the yarn, I got some additional Vauval and soft silk mohair for my rock milk cardigan. I think I had shared with you in the previous episode that I was worried about running out of yarn. I just went ahead and bought some extra. When I bought this, there were only two balls of this left at the shop that I had purchased from originally, so I bought both of them. But I think with these 2 extra balls, I should be in much better shape. Hopefully not running out of yarn this time. I guess it's definitely still a possibility, but less of a strong likelihood at this point now that I have a little bit replenished here. And then next up, I bought some yarn for like wintry accessories. So in my stash, I do have a lot of single skeins, a fingering weight, and a few DK, not really any worsted. But that being said, like I have a lot of these skeins I purchased like a while ago, and I feel like my color palette has kind of shifted over time. So I wanted something that felt more like me now. So that's what I bought. I got a couple of skeins of Knitting for Olive merino in this rust color. And right now the lighting is like very, very warm. I'll try to put in some footage of like more natural light versions of all of these. And then I also got this Untold Pure Silk Mohair to go with it. So these look absolutely stunning together. I'm so excited to work these together, and you might be asking like, why didn't you just get the Knitting for Olive mohair? I would have, but they were out of stock of the kind of coordinating color, but did have this great coordinating color in this other brand. So I kind of took a chance and was like, they should at least be relatively close. I think it's going to be a gorgeous fit. And then continuing in the Knitting for Olive trend, I got a few balls of Knitting for Olive heavy merino. This is the slate green color. Again, the lighting is not doing this justice because I'm working with the overheads here as the light fades. My plan for these is to have a coordinating knit and hat pattern in both fingering and worsted weight. So that's kind of the idea here. I'm probably going to use the same stitch pattern as I'm using in Rock Mill Cardigan, and by that I mean there are going to be 6 stitch pattern options. I've been really into including options in all of my patterns, and just kind of making things more customizable and more unique to what your own individual preferences are. So creating a lot of options is always fun. It also means that you can shop your stash for what you already have, especially like heading into the holidays and things. You're not having to like rush to order yarn. Almost everyone has some fingering weight or worsted weight yarn lying around. So that's kind of the goal here with these. All right, and then one last set of yarn. Again, this is Knitting for Olive heavy merino. This is the slate gray colorway, and I bought a sweater quantity of this. And my thought initially is if I can meet gauge of my Rock Mill cardigan, I am going to try to knit a second option with a different stitch pattern option of Rock Mill cardigan. And if not, I will knit some other DK to worsted weight pattern with this. It's just a classic gray. I think it's going to go great with basically everything in my wardrobe. It's going to be a great cardigan option. So yes, slightly less solid plans for what's going to happen with this yarn here, but excited to have just kind of like a commercial yarn sweater quantity in a color that I know I'm going to wear and love. That is everything I have to share today. Thank you so much for sticking around and chatting with me about all of my projects. I'm kind of excited to have this sweater project off the needles. I can get back to some of my other whips. I can cast on some new things. I feel like it's a little bit of a fresh start phase right now. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss what I get up to next with all of this yarn that I just purchased. Very excited to start working on some of these things. It feels very cozy, very fall, though I know that fall is quickly winding down here. You can always find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Carrie Knits, and don't miss that discount on the newly released Plinth Sweater if that's something that you're interested in. You can always sign up for my newsletter list below to get an even better discount. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.